Oh, my lipstick's messed up on that lip. I'm gonna go fix it. Okay. Then we pull it up on there.
And where? Yeah. What's up, guys? Hey. All right. Let me give it a second. Let everybody get on here. How to work all this fancy stuff. Here's the cord. Give it a second. Let everybody get on here. So sorry if I'm like shaking the camera or something. Oh, that's really annoying. What's up, guys?
Just see how my lips are.
You do what?
I see how my lips are.
It does have a kind of a natural little
That one side.
curve to it. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I mean, I know it. It's fine. Oh, friends, hi. Welcome to Online Steps to Success.
What's up, guys?
So glad you're here. Right now. I need my hand right here.
Yep.
And it's okay. You can see that. Okay. All right. We're rolling. Hi. So I'm making my lighting guy. My lighting and sound guy do double work today.
Promotion.
Yeah. So I miss you too.
Who's that?
Haley. So welcome to Online Steps. This is a special edition for sure because we're in the middle of crazy town.
This is not a safe social distance.
But we're married, so we live together.
Objects in camera might be closer than they appear.
Yeah, also.
This is actually 6 feet away. You just can't tell.
My hair doesn't look great.
Your hair looks amazing.
You don't want to tell me that?
I think your hair looks great.
Also, the angle is not good. I know you don't like it, but look, not better. It is.
Whatever.
I saw something on my shirt. Okay.
Also, it almost shows like my first belly roll, you know? Just put it up on the desk. What's up, guys?
All right. So welcome to Online Steps to Success. My name is Allison Dalkey. Let me make sure.
I'm Ryan Dalkey.
I'm just going to introduce you in a minute. Okay, yeah, we're on YouTube too.
Forget I said that. One of those memory erasers, like Men in Black.
Okay. So our goal here every week is always the same. When we go live, it's to help you dream big, dream bigger, work smarter, change yourself, and change the world as you grow your business. And we're in the middle of a 12-week series of me going back through the lessons that I learned every single year that I've been in direct sales. But tonight we're doing a special edition. We are going to talk about some of those things. But obviously there's a lot bigger things going on right now in the world that we want to talk about. So again, this is my husband, Brian. I think this is the first time you've been on this year.
Yeah.
This is only like the 5th time this year. So
Yeah.
we're definitely going to talk about some of the things we learned that 4th year in the business. And one of the craziest things is that year was very relevant to what's going on in the world right now. Because that year we learned how to work together, which is very hard. It's really challenging.
Almost killed each other.
Sometimes. He was working from home with me for the first time ever. And it was really challenging. So we are going to talk about that. And some of you know what that's like all of a sudden because we're all home together now, aren't we? So we are going to spend the majority of tonight giving you some very practical tips and strategies as you work from home with your spouse and your kids at home, maybe for the first time ever. But we also have some practical tips for those of you who don't have a spouse or kids at home, just about how to really manage the situation that we've all found ourselves in and how to do it well. And while usually this is always about direct sales, it's going to be about that tonight for sure. But it's a little bit bigger than that too. I think one of the things that we've seen very obviously is just this tension of how do we all do this together in the same household? How do we do marriage and family and work together well in this season, in this uncertain time? So if you know somebody else who's like, maybe they don't have a business, they don't work from home, but they're a stay-at-home mom and their spouse is home for the first time.
Or a work-at-home mom.
Yeah, whatever the situation, like we've had
so many conversations in the last few days with people.
Yes. Just how do we do
just
this?
Out of the woodwork. I've had them with relatives, neighbors, friends, we live in an area where oil and natural gas is a really big part of our industry. That's already really stressful right now because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but oil prices are record lows. And so add that into most of them are having to work from home because every place is locked down. And a lot of people that have never worked from home or haven't in a really long time are. And then they're also stressed out because a lot of their jobs are shaky right now. I mean, there's companies here cutting 50% of their people and worldwide or all over the country in different businesses. And so all of a sudden we're having a lot of conversations about people being stressed out and then their spouse and them having to work together or not together, but in the same place.
Yeah, like just in the same place. It's a lot.
And they're not used to that. And so I had a conversation with someone yesterday or the day before, and they said, I don't know how you guys do it. We've only been working together for 4 days, and she just doesn't understand how I work, and I don't understand what she does. And I left a dirty dish on the counter the other day, and you would have thought, I'd wreck the whole house, and it was just this whole thing. So anyway, we just felt like we should talk about this.
Yeah.
And it worked with our
So before we really dive in, though, I want to kind of do a check-in. You guys are our people. I just want to know how you are. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Is there anything that we can specifically be praying for you or for your family? And if some of those things you want to keep private and you want to send us a message, I can't say words. Feel free to do
private
that.
Message.
Yeah, and we will touch base with those tomorrow in the morning. But aside from that, if there's something not public you want to talk about, I just really
need prayer for.
Yeah, I just really want to know how you guys are. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Many of you have been stuck inside for weeks now. Some of you, it's just kind of the beginning of that. So we just want to know how you are.
And where's everybody from? It's one of my favorite things every week. Allie asks where everybody's from, and I get to read on there all the different. Some of them are people I know, and I know exactly where they are from. Some of them live down the street. Some of them are in countries I've never even heard of or places I've never heard of. So,
are you looking at that?
I'm kind of watching both.
Because I was going to move that over here where I could see it.
Oh, yeah, do that.
Because I'm
do that.
Doing the whole thing. Sorry.
Is that going to mess you up because you're looking there, and there?
It's going to be fine.
Okay. Yes.
It's going to be fine.
Move this here then. So I'll put this there. Okay.
Haley says I had quite a mental breakdown today.
Okay.
And I could use some prayer for strength and patience. Girl, listen, I think let's just be honest about this. Like, we're all going to have breakdowns. I think like I sort of had my moment this weekend when I was like, this really sucks and this isn't fair. Okay. All true. Like, have your hissy fit. It's all going to be okay. And we need to get our emotions out. I think for me,
I get my hissy fit. I'm about to have it right now. No,
okay.
Okay.
You're not.
No, I know what you mean. Go ahead.
But I lost my train of thought.
You're basically saying it's okay. Like, none of us.
I know what I was going to say. Let's show you how not to do this. I know what I was going to say, though. I think the important thing is that we are very intentional about expressing the things that we're feeling. And I'm not saying that social media is not the way to do that, but I kind of am saying that. I think that being honest with your spouse in a safe way about, I don't like this, or I don't like this feels, or I feel out of control, right? Those are healthy things to do. Spouting all your fears and greatest worries on social media, probably not the best thing to do, because all you're doing is rising everyone else's anxiety. We're going to talk a little bit more about social media in a minute and ways to navigate that in this season. But it is really important that we don't keep everything in. And I am a natural bottler. I will just repress things because I don't want to bring about conflict. But in the end, that's very unhealthy. And so we want to make sure that we're expressing how we feel, that we're addressing those things, and then we're also looking at the reality of the situation. So Haley, I'm here for you, and I get it.
Yeah.
You were looking at some comments while I was talking.
Well, no, what I was going to say, just kind of in reference to, she touched on it. Like, none of us chose this. None of us wanted this. This isn't something anyone ever plans for. It's not something that has happened in any of our lifetimes. I know we had, trust me, I've nerded out on reading all about past pandemics and all of that. But even H1N1, which happened 10, 12 years ago, never got to this level of fear in our society, of shutdowns, of social distancing, all of that. So we're at a new threshold of fear of the unknown, essentially publicly and privately, than we have ever been. And so I think what she meant was it's okay to have that moment where you're pissed off and you're not happy about what's going on. I think one thing though that's really important is to make sure that the people that are closest to you know that it's an outward feeling and not an inward feeling. I think so many people, it's so easy to get caught up personally in the fear that's going on outside your door. And you've got to keep the perspective of you can worry, you can pray, you can do all of those things, but you do have control over inside the four walls of your house. And in most cases, we know people that have gotten sick, not from this, but of other things lately. And then it makes their house, that it changes the dynamic even more. So there are things in your house that are obviously out of your control, but for the most part, the things that go on in your house, the level of fear, the level of joy, the looking on the bright side, all of that stuff, you do have some control over that. And so we recommend that you keep that kind of top of mind, especially if you've got little kids, preteens, or even teenagers. A lot of the way they're feeling is an absolute reflection on the way you're feeling. And so we try to be very careful around our kids talking in fear at all about what's going on, but more just helping them understand why the things are going on that are going on. So, the schools are closing and all of that, that's stuff that they understand and are trying to wrap their head around. And so we're talking about it's preventative. It's just to protect you guys and all of that. But this is going to give us a great opportunity to spend more time with you and work on some fun projects with you and, read more books and do all of that. So you, in that same amount of time, you could have said, because we're all going to die, kids, put your head between your legs and kiss your butt goodbye. But I know none of you are doing that. But I'm just saying, whatever you're feeling, whenever they hear you saying and the news they see you watching and all of that, that's all going to rub off on them. So just be very conscientious of what's going on within your four walls.
Okay. I'm not going to be able to keep up with y'all's comments, but I am trying. Can you crack that door? It's like your hotness. It's like projecting on me. Norma, she said we just got shelter-in-place orders in Washington State. Allison, she said, I've been home since March 9th. Girl, you're doing it. Keep the faith. Patty says she works at Walmart and it's been crazy. Faye said tomorrow makes 1 week she's been home. Alicia, she's from Texas, but she's stuck in Springfield right now.
Being held hostage, I believe she said.
She did say being held hostage.
I saw a lot of hostage. I think that's a feeling people have right now.
Yeah.
Like they're being held against their will.
Melanie said, doing okay, but social media is very overwhelming right now. I agree with that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And Gina said, we're all right, but we've got sick babies at home. And so we are praying for all of you. And I know it is crazy. And there's a lot of talk of doing distance learning with kiddos, and that can be the thought of that is overwhelming and too much. And
we tried to homeschool one.
Oh my!
Couldn't do it.
One who could read by herself.
Four. So we have this family text, and so we were different sisters of mine and brother-in-law. They were talking about it, and so Allie said something about, "Oh, good Lord! Like if they mandate it, it's going to get stressful around here." And I think the the GIF I posted was like a woman being taken into prison, and it said one thing leads to another, and then social workers or Child Protective Services or
show up.
I was like, accurate. So
not really, but
yeah.
All right, so let's dive in a little bit. Again, we really do want to pray for you guys. If there's anything specific you want to shoot us a message, feel free to. We would love to do that. There's just a lot going on in the world. So let's talk a little bit about how do I do this well with my spouse maybe being home for the first time. Maybe you're home for the first time. Your kids are home. Everybody's home. Let's talk about how we do that. I want to give you a couple business tips really quick. I think, honestly, this is an incredible season for you to look at your business with a fine-tooth comb. I have been begging you for weeks and months to look at what you're doing and decide is this the smartest, the fastest, the best, the most efficient way to turn a profit? And if it's not, why do I continue to do it? And we've talked a lot about busy work, and we've talked a lot about things that do not produce income and are not worth your time. And friends, we're in a season now where you don't have Well, what's funny is some of you actually maybe have more time now than you ever have to run your business because maybe you're home from your other
Right.
job,
Yeah.
possibly. But if you're,
Or spouse is home to help out with some of the stuff.
or
around
if,
the house,
but
yeah.
if you're used to being home while your kids are at school or whatever, if the situation changed, this really is a time for you to really look at everything and say, I want to do this well. I want to generate profit in my business. And I want to make sure that the things that I'm doing are profit generating and not just busy work. There's too much busy work out there. So you've got to make sure that the things you're doing are actually forward moving your business. I really believe that this circumstance in itself can help you look at your business through a new lens, and create something new out of it, create something innovative, do something that you've never done. It's an excuse for you to say, I can't do it like this anymore. I've got to make a change. Change is good. Change means you are innovating and growing, and it's necessary. And so, my biggest tip for that when it comes to your business and this whole situation, if there is a tension point right now, a big point that you're saying there is a lot of tension around this area in my business, it's time that you really looked at that and evaluate and say, how can I do this better? How can I do it in a way that I will actually get it done? How can I do it in a way that will actually move me forward? Those are the things that we want to focus on right now.
Real quick on that, before we jump into the working from spouse tips and tricks or working with your spouse tips and tricks stuff, someone, and we're hearing this some also just within our team and group, people are saying, I feel bad about selling right now because of everything else that's going on in the world. So I've had a lot of conversations recently, people, I'm sure you guys are doing too. People call each other and say, hey, how's business? Like, are you guys good? I've had quite a few conversations like that with friends lately. And one thing that is almost like a light bulb that goes off when people ask how our business is, they'll say, oh man, I bet, person to person sales are way down because of all the stuff going on. And I said, well, they are and they aren't. I said, our business is actually up, but because everybody is stuck in their homes and because they don't want their home to feel like a prison, because they want it to be comfortable and they want it to be a place that they want to be, smell is such a huge part of that.
But honestly, like anything at all, when you look at direct sales in general, anything that's a comfort care item,
right, are the things that people will, and guys too, people are saving. I've read a thing today that said the best thing for American savings account is being locked in their house. People are cooking all their meals for the first time in history. I listened to a news reporter yesterday that was talking about him and his wife are newly married, and she's never cooked, and she's been cooking dinner every night and loves it. She's been looking up recipes, and she's never boiled water. And the woman made some kind of poached salmon thing the other night that he said was amazing. So people are saving tons of money, and they don't mind spending $50 or $80 or $100 on items that they can put in their home to make their home feel more comforting and less like a jail and a hostage situation or whatever you want to call it. And Scentsy does that. Scentsy's biggest time of growth in history was during the 2008 recession. And you're not being selfish by selling it. You got to remember that. But I'll throw it back to her. Let her keep us moving on the right track here.
Okay, so business tips. Those are the biggest things. Cut out the fluff. And the other tip for those of you who now have more time to run your business because you're at home than you ever have before, this is a warning. Be aware that more time does not equal better business. Okay? More time does not equal your business being better, because what often happens is when people have more time, they do more crap that is not necessary and does not actually drive or move their business forward. And so that is something you've got to be aware of if you're one who's finding yourself with more time. If you're one who's finding yourself with less time to run your business, it's time to cut the crap. It's time to look at what's not producing, what is not income generating, what's not moving you forward, and stop doing those things. Okay, let's talk a little bit about being home with your spouse.
Let's do it.
What would you say how long have we been home together now?
Well, you slept in today.
Oh, I didn't mean today.
So I quit my real job in 2010. And then did a short stint upstate in youth ministry, not prison.
That's for
2 years? So we've worked together 8 out of the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And it was real hard.
It was real hard.
It's very hard to all of a sudden, when you've had boundaries and rules and systems that work, all of a sudden for those things to be thrown out of whack. That's hard in general. But then attempting to work in the same space as your spouse, even if you're working two completely separate jobs, or maybe one of you isn't working, the other one is, whatever, but now you find yourself physically near somebody more so than you've ever been, that becomes a big challenge. So what would you say was the hardest thing about coming home? Not necessarily about like working with me, but just us being around each other more. What was the biggest challenge for you?
I think that, so before Allie and I started working together, I was in the car business, really long hours, 60, 70 hours a week, most weeks. And when I came home, I could unplug from work. And she would almost always unplug from work when I came home because we didn't have a lot of time we were going to be able to spend together. And so I think our time together was always very valued, and it was very much you and me, as opposed to once we started working together, where do you draw that line? Like it's always work. Like it's always,
yeah.
And because we didn't know what the boundaries were. And so my mind and Allie's mind are kind of on different clocks. So Allie takes a little while to get up in the morning. She's a little slower paced in the morning. My head comes off the pillow ready to rock and roll. And so just that early morning, me learning that I couldn't overwhelm her with ideas and information early. And then in the evening is a lot of times when she gets the most done and she's thinking clearly and all of that. And I'm not that way. So I think just learning each other's rhythms were the places that we almost killed each other a lot, because I didn't know what the boundaries needed to be. And then also because I had been in business, she had never been in business for the most part. She was a school teacher before Cincy. I thought I just knew everything about everything. And so I wanted to make all my ideas happen in our business. And she had built this thing for 2 or 3 years already without me. And so I learned really quickly that I couldn't be the boss of work time. She lets me be the boss of the household, but of work, I had to step back. Am I shaking the camera?
Yeah.
Don't touch the desk a lot. It moves the camera. Well, I need to get one that mounts to the wall then, because I'm a desk mover. Just
Don't
kidding.
do it. Okay. All right. So let's talk about some super simple tips. The biggest one is to intentionally communicate. Now, I know that sounds really simple, and a lot of this comes from, we've done a lot of marriage retreats. We've spent a lot of time with a lot of couples. And I think one of the biggest things we hear in general, whether you're in the same house cooped up together or not, is communication is always an issue.
Yeah.
It is always an issue. And so I would say, even if it's just for the excuse of this is the weird season that we're in and we're going to have to do something different, let's set up a Monday morning, Sunday afternoon, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, whatever, like intentional communication time. What does that look like? So for us, that often very much looks like, hey, what does next week look like for you? What are the to-dos on your list? One of the things we were talking about earlier is a lot of people don't really know what the other spouse really does. Like,
right.
I mean, I know what your job is, but that doesn't mean I know like what that entails or like what you have to check off your to-do list,
well, like,
right?
Are you guys Friends fans? If you're Friends fans, give me a thumbs up or a heart, because I got to know this. So in Friends, whenever they're playing, is it like season 6 where they're playing that game?
Oh, that's one of my favorite episodes.
I know.
I think it's season 5, actually.
Maybe. But they're playing that game, and because they all know each other so well, okay, a bunch of hearts, Friends fans, okay. So they're playing that game, and one of the questions is, what is Chandler's job? So this is their best friend. They're with each other every day, and they're like,
he's a trans monster. He's a trans monster.
Trans monster is what. And then Monica says, that's not even a word. But that is a lot of our situations.
Yeah.
I was talking to a good friend the other day, and he's in the oil business, and they were talking about how a lot of the stuff he does it now that he's working from home, his wife had no idea. And so I think a lot of times we give our spouses the highlights of our day or the lowlights of our day, the things that truly affect our mood one way or the other. But a lot of just the mundane, Addie's watching the kids. She just came by and said, and then walked off. Like she's giving me like Navy SEAL hand signals. Um, but I think a lot of us don't know what our spouses do, the details and the nitty gritty and the day-to-day stuff. And so I think, yeah, sitting down and just having a conversation, like what's your day look
Well,
like?
like we even had a moment this morning where, like you had expectations of there's things we need to do around the house. I had different expectations of like, I got a lot of like in front of the computer stuff to do today, and it was just like this moment of like, we're not on the same page.
Yeah.
And really that's what communication comes down to is like, we're not on the same page.
Yeah.
And it comes from not communicating.
Right.
And so when you can, and it sounds really stupid kind of, but to say like, hey, what's on like your list this week? And your spouse he needs to go in a room and work from 9 to 5. Okay. So be it. But also like you are now a part of that equation in terms of lunch and the kids are around and whatever. So it just puts a different dynamic to things.
Well, and that's the whole thing. So the more bought in you are to what your spouse is doing, the easier it is for you to support them and vice versa. But when your spouse is truly concerned about what you're doing and truly interested in knowing about what you're doing, you feel so much more valued in the work that you're doing. And especially when you see them going out of their way to make that happen and make it possible. So by sitting down, like she said, maybe on a Sunday afternoon and just saying, hey, let's walk through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The thing with us is my week to week never looks the same. It depends on weather and a bunch of other things. Allie's day to day looks similar. Like any given calendar month looks pretty similar.
Yeah, my weeks look pretty similar week to week.
But so Allie sometimes says, what's your week look like? And I say, yeah, like I have no idea. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I don't know. But there are things that I do have scheduled so we can sit down and talk through those. And then she just knows that throughout the week, there might be times when my schedule changes and we'll just roll with it, where she can sit down and tell me everything about each part of every day. So like today we did sit down this morning. Allie kind of said she had her little breakdown a couple days ago, whatever. She just tried to cram a whole lot in last week. And with it being spring break or COVID break or whatever we're calling this right now, but last week was what our spring break was supposed to be. She didn't have anything planned, but because we found out pretty early in the week we were going to have an additional 2 weeks after, she just started front loading a bunch of the work she needed to do. And so last week ended up being a work week. Mentally, she wasn't really ready for it. And then she threw some other things on her plate that were too much. And then I had emergency dental surgery on Thursday and I was out of commission for a day. So anyway, all these things piled up and she kind of had a breakdown and just said, I tried to do too much this week. So then this morning I walk in, I let her sleep in and walk in. And I said, hey, we've got some stuff we need to start working on, some project stuff, not work stuff. And she ran me through the laundry list of things she needed to do today, work-wise. I thought we were taking a step back this week from all the crazy. She thought we were stepping into it, front-loading the week so we could have the rest of the week. So anyway, miscommunication. But we talked through it. And then I was able to help her throughout the day, try to take stuff off of her plate, made dinner for everybody. She had some time to get away and write content for tonight and watch our horse ride, or our horse give a ride to our daughter, or our daughter ride our horse. And so we're able to support each other better when we're communicating. If your spouse just says, hey, I need 8 to 5, I'll be in, the office. I'll come out for an hour lunch at 12. That's great, but that's the schedule. You're not bought into what they're doing because you have no idea. And that's where really asking those questions, like, what are you doing? Like, I just, tell me what you do, and do it in a supportive way, not a, tell me what you do. I want to know, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's one of the best ways.
I think the other thing too, and with all of that goes, when you understand like what's on their list, you can help better understand what their expectation of themselves is. And so I often have a different expectation of myself than he has of me, or the kids have of me. And vice versa. Like I can get in my head about a lot of things. And so the more we can communicate that, the better. And the more we can be empathetic towards each other. Right. And I think that is one of the key pieces. We're going to talk in a minute about love and respect. And I think that's a huge piece of that. But even just to better understand your spouse and say, like, I know that you are trying to do what's best for us in this season. When you can start to show empathy that way towards your spouse, that's huge. That's really huge.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say that's really important is to look at what everybody's really specific needs are. This goes for your kids and your spouse, anybody in your household, because situations are different. And so, for instance, like I am somebody that thrives on quiet and alone time. And even though I'm actually like, I'm a super huge homebody. I could probably stay home for a long time. Did our video just go off on
She does stay home for a long time in some cases.
Facebook?
No, those were him.
Okay, great. Oh, it's just error loading on my side. Anyways, but it's important that I have alone time. That's just one of the needs that I have to function in a good way.
Yeah.
And when we talked about last week, I was like, I don't have any alone time, like not intentional, like by myself, like quiet, reflective time. And those things are important.
Yep.
And the same is true for your spouse, like better understanding what their needs are and being empathetic towards those needs and creating space for them.
Yeah. So my thing is I have to get out of the house at least once a day. I can't. Allie, as long as she gets her alone time every day, be it 20 minutes to an hour, whatever she needs, she could not ever leave the house, ever.
No.
She's gone weeks, maybe not consecutive
Maybe
weeks.
I was made for this.
But there was a point this winter where I was like, babe, you need to go outside. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you haven't left in 8 days. It's like, yeah, I did. I went and got the mail yesterday. I'm like, you walked to the mailbox yesterday, but you probably need to get out of the house. She was like, yeah, maybe I do. And it wasn't the fact that she'd worn the same clothes for 6 days.
No, you stop that.
I'm kidding.
You're so full of crap.
But rain, sleet, snow, doesn't matter. I have to get out of the house at least once a day. If I'm indoors for 24 hours, I'll go crazy. So even if that's just sometimes she'll have packages to ship off or something. I'm like, ooh, I'll do that. I'll go to the post office. And she knows. And it's not always at the most opportune time, but sometimes I just get stir crazy and I'm like, I got to get out of here for that. I'm going to Lowe's, going to do something. And she's like, okay, go. So know what your spouse's needs are, and then also know anyone else in your household. If you've got
kids,
older family members living with you, kids, whatever it might be,
for everybody to
their needs function best as a whole,
yep.
Knowing your kids' needs is really important.
Well, my kids have been together now for 10 days, 12 days.
Yeah.
And I noticed this weekend, I was like, well, you guys are about to bust a cap here. Like, things are going to explode. Bust a cap.
No, shoot somebody.
That's not what I meant to say. What's it called? Like
burst a capillary.
Maybe that's.
Your head's gonna explode.
I don't know.
The veins in your forehead are starting to pop out.
Things weren't gonna be good. Friends.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was like, look, everybody's gotta go to their room right now by yourself. Don't talk to anybody. Don't go to anybody else's room. Like, everybody needs to be alone for a minute. And yeah, so important.
Yeah.
But it's just even recognizing oh, we've all been together a little bit too much. How can we create space for us to function well?
For sure.
I would also say one of the big tips, and this is whether you're at home with kids or spouses or you're by yourself, I think one of the ways we thrive through this is by creating a schedule. And I think that schedule's got to be fluid. Fluidity is something that flows, it moves, it's able to change and, grow as we need it to. But the reality is we all thrive on routine. Now, listen, I know we all like freedom. We like to do whatever we want, whenever we want. We did that this week. It was spring break. So there was one point this week when we were eating Cheetos, Brian and I, at 1 o'clock in the morning, binge watching Outlander on Netflix.
Bad idea.
It's a bad idea. Okay. Nobody thrives like that.
Why'd you make me eat Cheetos? I feel so bloated. I'm like, sorry, I'm a late night grubber. So
it was bad.
It was a bad
so
decision.
while I like the freedom to say yes with binge watching Netflix and eating Cheetos, we can't survive like that for long. And so the smart and responsible thing and most healthy thing for all of us to do is to find a schedule that we can work with. Now, it's not a rigid schedule. It's not something that says if we didn't do a science project at 2 o'clock, all has failed and screw it. No, it's fluid. It's going to move. It's going to change. It's not always going to be perfect, but you're going to work towards it. That's incredibly important. We all thrive with boundaries in place. And so,
for example, we are doing, so when we found out we were going to be out of school for a consecutive 23 plus days, which I saw someone say, I think Haley maybe said, we're out till September. We're probably going to be too. Kansas, the state just north of us, canceled school for the rest of the year. They're not coming back until August or September, whenever it is. But Allie on her calendar, Allie loves calendars. We have multiple calendars. I have 3 that I can see right now. There's probably 6 in this house. Look, one behind us, 2, which is not filled out.
There's one right there.
4, good Lord. So on our refrigerator calendar, our family calendar, When we found out how many days consecutively we were going to be together, it was almost the same amount of days as there are Marvel movies. And we wanted to do a Marvel movie chronological marathon with kids. So we said, we're going to do it. So Allie on the calendar put a movie every day. So we have Marvel movie night every night. Well, yesterday we watched 2. So that jacks the calendar up, right?
It's a erasable pen. I'll fix it.
I know. She was like, it's fine. It's a erasable pen.
I'll fix it.
Fluid. Stay fluid.
Stay fluid. Okay. So.
Is that Fiona?
That's not Fiona.
No, it's a different
This is Jessica.
Yeah. Allie's named our fiddly fig plants.
Well, she was named after the naked statue at our Mexico house. This is Jessica. Fiona's in my summer.
Side story, but we had a marble statue at this house we rented in Mexico this summer of a naked woman laying down. And so we put a beanie on her, dressed her, but the kids named her Jessica. And they would talk to her. It was a whole thing. But they wanted to name that fiddly fig Jessica. So that's what we did.
Okay. So, all right, let's talk about a couple other things about challenges of working with your spouse at home, or not even working, just being together. Not being together. So a fluid schedule is important. We made a schedule for our kids. And it's not like we are not trying to homeschool. We're not right now. And I don't know what's coming. I don't know what that looks like. We're taking it one day at a time. I'm not worrying myself right now about what the state is going to say we have to do.
We finally got toilet paper.
With our
so
kids.
We're good for a little bit.
We're not kidding. But we are monitoring screen time. We are putting them on a schedule. They have to be outside 30 minutes at least. We have 2 30-minute sessions, and that's like a minimum. You have this is when you have to be outside.
Yeah, tonight they were outside for like 3 hours.
We're putting in reading time. We've got Play-Doh, art, whatever, that kind of time. Yeah. So it's just a fluid schedule. We're gonna go with it. We're gonna see what happens, but everyone's gonna thrive better that way. All right. Other things: working closely with somebody else in your house. Deal with issues as they come up. And that's not just issues between the two of you or between you and your kids. Deal with the issues you're having too. We're all battling new demons. We're all struggling with new things. Deal with those things as they come. Do not sit on them. Don't squash them. Don't ignore them. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like it's too much, excuse yourself. Put yourself in the closet for a minute. I mean, yes, if you have infants, whatever, I understand. Like there are situations that you can't hide, but do what you can to get the space you need to pray, to journal, to write, to think, to talk out loud. Like sometimes we just need to process things out loud, but do not hold things in. And that also goes for your spouse. If they're at home more than they've ever been before and things are coming up, address them. Get it out on the table. Because what happens when we don't do that is someone explodes.
Yep.
It's always.
And actually said this to her today. This is something a lingo we had that we used all the time. We've kind of gotten into this routine where we don't really need to. But this morning I kind of had a reminder, this is business, not personal. Whenever we were talking about our work schedule for the week, I could tell, felt attacked a little bit. Because like I said a minute ago, we were just talking about how a couple days ago, we decided this week we were going to step back a little bit. We way overloaded last week. And so as we were healing coming out of that conversation, and she said, okay, this week I'm not going to overload myself. I'll do what I need to do, but I'm not going to overload myself. So then this morning she tells me all the things she has to do today. And I said, okay, that's not what we talked about. And she goes, well, and she got real defensive. I said, babe, wait a minute. This is business. That's not personal. Like, let's talk about what we need to do business wise, but it can't get personal. And so, because what happens is if you didn't know, we're married. We have a very incredible friendship, also a very incredible intimacy and love and all of that, but we also work together. And so you've got to be able to compartmentalize those a little bit where you can sit down and have a business meeting. Like we've even gotten to where when we go to lunch, one of us will clarify, is this a business lunch or is this like a lunch date? Because if it's a lunch date, we can talk about how crappy the people are that we work with. If it's a business date, we're eating lunch with the people we work with. And so kind of a joke, but kind of not. But we've set very clear boundaries on what those things are. Now, those lines get crossed constantly.
Yeah.
But fortunately for most of you, probably, you're not working with your spouse right now. You're working in the same environment that your spouse is working in but proximity. You're not necessarily having to do the work your spouse is doing, right. And all of that. So it might be a little different for you guys, but make sure that when you're sitting down having that planning meeting for the week and they're telling you about their work and all of that, you're not their coworker. You're their spouse. So be endearing and be, engaged in conversation and be interested and be empathetic to the things that they might not want to do that week that they need to do, and be supportive. Don't be the critical boss or the critical coworker, because that's not the role you're supposed to play.
Okay, another important tip that I think is pretty vital, and especially just in this season that we're all finding ourselves in, just remember that time together is not equal to quality time. So just
Kind of what we're talking about.
it's just yeah, just because you're together. And the same is true with your kids. Like, you're probably spending a lot more time with your kids right now. Just because you're spending more physical time with them does not mean that that's quality time. And I'm not saying we're doing a crappy job and it's not quality time, but let's be real. Like, you spend an entire day with kids, it doesn't mean it's quality time. The same is true with your spouse. They may be around more in this season, but you still got to be intentional about having quality time together, especially a check-in. And I think that it's really necessary right now that we're being intentional about checking in and saying, how are you? How are you feeling? How's work? How are the kids? How is everything? Because a lot's going on and things are changing every day. So remember that time together is not equal to quality time.
Right.
Okay.
But in that, I think, and I don't know if you've gotten anywhere else, like the boundaries of setting work hours and having that expectation. Okay.
Before we talk about that, though, let's talk about love and respect real quick.
Like you.
Yeah.
So everybody, no. So Love and Respect, a great book. If you haven't ever read it, it's an incredible, probably.
I would say it changed our marriage.
No, it definitely changed our marriage. I was going to say it might be, if you were just to read one marriage book, like, it might be the one. Awesome. It's old. I mean, it's like 30 years old, probably. There have been a bunch of other incredible books written before and after that. But if you were to just read one, I mean, it's on our short list of our top 3 or 4 things that we tell couples to read. But the whole idea of love and respect is biblically there. Well, there's a verse that gets mistranslated very often, but it basically says, men, love your husbands, women, respect your wives. Well,
men love your wives.
Men love your wives. What did I say?
Men love your husbands.
Well, it's 2020, people. I'm changing it up. No, so it's, it says biblically men are called to love their wives. Wives are called to respect their husbands. Well, the reason that it gets kind of jacked around in the day and age we live in, there's no Hallmark card that says I respect you, that a wife can buy her husband, right? Everything is love. They talk about the Greeks had 7 words for love. If they knew that you used the same word to say I love you spouse as you used to say I love you mom, that they would vomit in their mouth, because it's such a tricky word. And
it's called Love and Respect by Dr.
Eggerichs, like EGG Rich, right? Egg Rich?
Yeah, or 1G maybe.
Right,
yeah.
the T in it. Anyway, but the whole, the symbolic meaning behind all of it is men, when you really get down, if you true serum men almost need respect more than they need love. We feel love and adoration and all of that in respect more than we do in just the act of love. So where women need love and adoration and understanding and empathy, where they're not as concerned about respect. And so the breakdown of that and just knowing your role in your relationship with your spouse is, we think, just changes everything. And so even though I love it when she says I love you, and it almost feels weird when she says I respect you, but knowing she respects me based on the way that she treats me and the decisions I make and the way I lead our family, those kinds of things mean more to me than when she gives me a hug and says I love you. It sounds silly, but read the book. It's incredible.
Try it, or just try it.
Try it
with your spouse and see what happens.
But I think how it correlates right now is, if your spouse is home, let's say, we're talking to men and women tonight, but if you're a woman and your husband is home for the first time working, he's getting a front row seat of seeing all the things that you do every day that as a guy I took for granted when I worked outside the home. And had a conversation with one of my neighbors the other day, and he said, I didn't realize my wife had certain pet peeves around the house. Like, I eat lunch really quick because I'm working, throw my dishes in the sink and run some water, soak the dishes. And she doesn't like that. Well, it's because she's worked in this household, taking care of these kids in this house and doing all of these things for so long. You're in her environment. And so by her as my wife jumping on me about things that I didn't think were any big deal feels like she doesn't respect me. Like I'm at home trying to bring home the bacon, trying to do all this, and for her to jump on me over a dish feels like she's personally attacking me for something I don't deserve. When from her perspective, I'm not showing love for her because I'm not appreciating keeping her space the way that she's always kept it when I've been gone. So little things like that can create this snowball effect of just this happening. And it's funny. We were talking about so many people are home together right now and they can't go anywhere. I guarantee you there's going to be more babies born 9 months from now than probably any other time in American history. I also guarantee you there's going to be more divorces in the next year than there maybe has been any time in history, because people are figuring out that spending 3 or 4 hours a day with their spouse or spending 24 hours a day with their spouse is very different. And so little things like,
you want to fight? I want to fight.
With me?
Yeah, because you know what?
What?
True. It could be true. I think that could happen for sure. Or I think people could actually stand up for something and fight for their marriages. I think that this season.
She's talking to the eternal optimist here. And I'm like, I got you. I know.
I think that this season could be one that pushes people towards dealing with the crap they've not dealt with for so long, restoring things that have never been restored. It's going to be a choice. It's going to be your choice as to how you move forward. And I am going to sit on the other side of it and say, I think more marriages are going to be restored. I think people are going to look at their spouses differently. I think there's going to be more love and respect across the board because we're all in this together and we're going to have to join arms and say, we're going to get through this. So P.S. He is the eternal optimist.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Like, I'm here to fight for that. But, sorry, I'm typing in the author.
They already have it. Somebody already put it.
Oh, I didn't see that they put it. No, listen, guys, I'm here for that. I believe that we do live in a world where it's easier. You can get divorced online without ever even having to go see an attorney. Like, it's the craziest thing ever. We live in a world where it's so easy to get out of eternal bonds. And this all did hit in China 2 months before it hit here. And the Chinese online divorce numbers are already off the charts. So statistically, it's just going to happen. But for the people that are willing to fight and for the people that know that this is not a battle between two people, this is a battle between light and dark and between good and bad and evil and holy. When they understand that and know that they're fighting the same war, they've just got to face their enemy shoulder to shoulder and not fight face to face.
It's like deep cleaning the house.
That can change everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like deep cleaning the relationship.
Who said that?
Aaron said it's like she's like, too. She's like deep cleaning the house.
Aaron.
Deep cleaning the relationship.
That's
it
right.
is. Okay. So and here's the thing about love and respect. And I think this is the most challenging part of it and also the most rewarding part of it. It's unconditional. So what that means is I love this man. And that's a choice. I don't always like him.
I know someone said you have to like your spouse to love them. I see what you're saying, and I agree, but also what she's saying.
It's a yes and but. You know, like there's more to it than that.
I like your butt.
Okay. But the thing is, like, it's a choice. It's always going to be a choice. Choosing to love someone is not a feeling. It's not lust. I'm going to choose to love them. And when it comes to respecting your spouse, the same is true. I've had this conversation a gazillion times with so many women, is that the biggest mistake I ever made in our marriage was, one, talking down about my husband, either to my sisters or my friends or whatever, because when you get down to it, the things that you say out of your mouth are the things that you truly believe. And when I look back at those seasons all those years ago, when that's really how I felt, I was irritated and pissed off and mad and whatever, right? And I thought I was righteously so. In reality, I wasn't respecting who he was or what he was providing for me. And so the respect and the love piece of it is an unconditional thing. It doesn't mean that you earned it. It means that we're in a covenant relationship and I promised that this is what I would do for you. The other piece of that is when you really look at marriage, it is, listen, everything can come and go. And marriage can come and go if you choose to believe that. But I think one of the biggest things that you can do for your spouse is say, I'm not going to leave. That's that bond of trust saying, like, we're going to work through whatever. We all have crack. We all have mess. We all are growing and getting either better or worse all the time. And sometimes it's a slippery slope. We take 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. But the way we can grow the best is when we have somebody standing beside us saying, maybe you took a step back. Maybe you took 3 steps back. Maybe you took 10 steps back. But I believe in you. Like, you didn't earn it, and I still love you. You didn't earn it, but I still respect you because I know who you are and I'm on your side. And those things matter long term. That perspective matters. It's what changes things. And it can be the game changer for you right now in your marriage and your family as we all face this circumstance together.
Yeah, for sure. And it goes the other way as well. Like, you've got to understand that they're always for you. Because it doesn't always feel like they're for you. Trust me, as a husband that's been in a working relationship with his wife and also 4 kids that are always home and all of these other things involved, there's times when her needs get put above mine and vice versa. And there's times when I don't feel like she's for me, or maybe she feels like I'm not for her. You've got to remember they're for me. All the time they're for me. And that sometimes we have to vocalize it like, babe, I'm for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm for you, I'm for us, I'm for our family first in front of any of this business stuff.
Well, the reality is we're all selfish. Like, nobody teaches a 2-year-old to say mine. We came out of the womb concerned about ourselves. Like, we've always been that way. Our flesh is selfish. It will always be selfish. And it's something we have to fight against. And that's part of what marriage is too.
Yeah. But I think just reminding your spouse that you're for them, like in their work, in life, and everything, you are for them. You're not always going to agree. You're always going to have different, like she said.
That's key too. It's like, you don't have to agree to be for. Did you know, you do know this, did you know that 70% of arguments in a marriage do not get resolved? Ever. There's not like a winner or a loser. 70%. That's a huge number, but we all want to win.
Right. And we talk about you win when you lose.
Yeah.
In a marriage. Like, when we get in a big fight, and trust me, because I'm so stubborn,
we can fight.
I will tell you, I'm the most stubborn person in the world. And well, second only to her.
Yeah.
But
we can fight.
We can fight.
Ask any of our sisters who lived with us.
Yeah, and we don't fight near as much as we used to.
We're still married.
Or like we used to. But we used to fight like cats and dogs, and I was always right. But she would sometimes think she was right. How dumb was that? Right. And so, but what we learned is the first person to fall on the sword and say, you know what? Us is more important than this. Like, whatever this thing is, this is more important than it. And whoever would say, babe, I'm here for you and I love you and I'm not going to let this thing stop this from happening, that person wins.
So, and you know what?
You don't win, but you win.
You know what the sexiest thing in the world is? Not watching him win. It's not when he wins. That's not sexy. You know what's sexy is him coming to me and falling on the sword, saying, I'm sorry. Even if he's not sorry. Like, and
I like to think most of the time she knows I was right.
Sometimes I do.
And sometimes she tells me later, like, hey, that was dumb. I know you were right. Yeah. I'm like, you knew I was right that whole time? No, I don't say that. But we are completely convinced that you only win if you lose. Like, if you say, I'm sorry, this, and that's the thing, this is more important than this. Whatever these things are, these pinch points and these things that bother us, they're stupid.
Yeah.
And another rule, and it depends on what you believe spiritually, but I don't know, this is something we talk about at our marriage retreats. I don't know anyone that in the middle of a fight, if they'll grab a hold of their spouse and just pray over them and just pray all the things they're thankful for and all the reasons that they're so glad they're in their life, that can come out of that and still be at the same battle that they were before. You can still not feel great about.
It's a mean trick.
It's a mean trick,
But it
but
works
it
every
works. But if you will grab a hold of your spouse when you're in those contentious like throwdowns and just say, hey, I want to pray over us right now. Usually whoever says I want to pray over us, like if she says it, I'm like, oh, fine. But in my head, I'm like, why didn't I think of that first?
No, but it makes me so mad.
She gets mad. She's like, no, I don't want to.
Because I'm trying to
You have
fight.
to.
Like,
and that's the ultimate veto card.
You
like
know,
you can't argue with Jesus. Come on over here. It's not a. But if one of us will do that, it just cuts the tension in half. And then after that, amen, we kind of exhale, and we can still kind of argue the point that we were trying to make. And sometimes it is important real world stuff, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But regardless of how important it is, after you're able to do something like that, you can look at each other and say, okay, you can talk about it matter-of-factly much more than you can emotionally. And it puts it in a box. And sometimes nothing else is even said about it. Like sometimes we know it's so dumb or that our perspectives aren't going to be the same regardless. Sorry, I'm shaking the table again. That we just stop. And,
Yeah.
Then
let's talk about a couple other.
I was going to say inappropriate, but
You're going to say
I was like, and then.
Oh,
yeah, I won't.
Oh, that's good. That's the only reason to fight, anyways. Some general best practices during this time, not necessarily about you and your spouse, for your kids and all the people at home. Let's just talk about how do I take care of myself in this season of uncertainty. We're all facing, there's fear, there's anxiety, there's a lot of things. Let's talk about some very practical ways that we can quickly take care of ourselves. The first one is be reflective. I think it is more vital now than ever that you are reflective. And what does that mean? So reflective is when I take the time to say, what do I believe? What do I know to be true? What are my thoughts? Because what's happening is you're watching the news and you're on social media and you are taking everybody else's thoughts in and you are not taking time to process what your own thoughts are. So writing is mindfulness. So I don't care if you've never bought a journal in your life. I don't care if you have your kids scrap paper. It doesn't matter what you're writing on. Take a pen and a piece of paper and write down all of your thoughts. The things that you can get out on paper, just get it out of your head. Get it out of your head. I think you will be shocked at how much that helps relieve some of the anxiety inside you when you can just, I just need it out because it's all rolling around in my head. I don't know what I think. Be reflective. Take some time to just journal. It doesn't have to make sense. It's not something anybody else is ever going to read again. You don't ever have to read it again. Just write it and throw it away if you want to. But writing actually helps you process. And what's happening to so many people right now is they're not taking time to process. They're just intaking constantly. And I did this last week. I just intook a lot. And yes, we're trying to be informed. And yes, we want to know what's going on. And those things matter. But we also have to take time to process. And so writing things out.
I've read Allie's journal a couple times before. I mean, she leaves it out. And it's this leather-bound journal. And it's so choppy. And I asked her one time, I was like,
it's just stream of thought.
This doesn't make sense. And she's like, I just write stuff that's flowing through my head. It'll be like, today I was at the store. Crackers. Why is Wyatt eating dirt? My toenail hurts. Like it's just random. It's never like that. But it's just choppy and it doesn't flow at all. And she's such a good writer. Like when I read her writing, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. So I read that and I'm like, babe, what is that? And she's like, babe, when I just dump thoughts out, and she calls it a brain dump.
Yes.
Like when I brain dump on a page, it gets all these crazy thoughts out of my head and it just clears space up for the things that really matter.
Karen says pray. For me, that is really it's kind of prayer for me. Like that when I think about prayer, it is just stream of consciousness with the Lord. It is just being with somebody in the front seat. And I don't have to say, dear Lord, it's just, we were having a conversation 10 minutes ago. I'm having a conversation with you again. So it's just conscious thought of like, here's what's on my heart. Here's the things I'm worried about, things I'm scared about, things I can't control, things I'm excited about, things I don't know what to do about. And it's just out there, and it is sort of my form of prayer. And so I think you've got to do what you can do. Another best practice during this time is it's wise for you to limit your news intake.
Yes.
This man will watch the news all day long. And I will say, like,
I watch it all day long. I'm not in front of a TV.
I'll listen
to it on my phone. I'll listen to it in the car. I'll listen to it. But in my defense, I compartmentalize things. And so like I'll come home and tell her like, you wouldn't believe what these crazy people are thinking. So it's not that I'm ingesting it and believing all of it. I think the problem is right now, and not to downplay this pandemic at all. It is bad. It is more contagious than anything we've ever seen outside of a couple of random things. But there are people, very influential people in our media right now that are making this sound like the Black Plague that hit Europe in the 16th century or 14th century. And it's not. With our technology, with our social distancing, with our instant communication, we are going to nip this thing in the butt in the next couple of months. I'm confident of it. Now, take it for what it is. There's 1,000 other people that would say different. But I just really think we've gotten a handle on it more than we have a lot of things in history. And so you've got to just kind of put it in the compartment of, I can't do anything about it besides what I can change within these walls and within my immediate, inner circle 6-foot distance. So don't take in too much of it because it's the same thing over and over. So the more you listen to it, it makes you believe it.
Wear on you. Yeah. And the point is, yes, we need to be informed. 100% we need to be informed. I'm not saying don't watch the news. I'm saying limit your intake. And when you do that, you can focus then instead on controlling what you can control. You can't control this virus. You alone cannot do it. You can do your part and you can do what you've been asked to do. And that is all you can do. And when we can step back and say, okay, I have control over this and this is what I'm going to do, those things matter. But we can't get wrapped up in the things that we can't control. So yes, be informed, but limit it.
Yeah.
And you're going to know what's right for you. I can watch about 45 minutes a day. Right now, I'm pretty much trying to watch the president's address. That's what I'm watching. I'm not trying to watch anything else. I want to hear what he has to say, and then I'm done.
Him and his 5 or 6
and his people,
experts that are on the front line of it, yeah.
But I'm not watching. I'm not listening to what everybody else thinks, what everybody else says. I'm just, because it's too much for me. You might be able to watch more. That's fine. But I'm saying limit it to what is right for you and don't overdo it. Because the reality is we all know enough. We know it's highly contagious. We know what we're supposed to be doing right now. We know we're supposed to be washing our hands and not being around people. Okay, stay home. There it is. There's your news. Okay, limit what you're intaking. The other thing that you should limit or maybe eliminate in this season is social media. And yeah,
we're talking to them on social
media. I know, and maybe it's time to step away.
Turn off.
Yeah, I don't.
Right now. No.
Whatever. I don't care. I think it's really important that we limit what we're intaking. And I got on social media today just to post on. You guys know I haven't been on social media in months. Besides when we show up live here, I'm not.
Real quick, about 10 times a day, I'll go, "Did you see that? Oh no, you're not on social media." And then I'll tell her whatever it is she
I
needs
didn't
to
see any
see.
of it. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I know nothing, and I love it. But I got on today to get on here and post that we're going live tonight. And what I do, I scroll for 15 minutes. And
you did?
I sure did. And I felt like death afterwards.
It's like a crackhead hitting that pipe.
I don't know how y'all are doing it.
Guys, I'll legit send her a message on social, like on Facebook, just do Messenger. I'll cut and paste something and send it to like an article I want her to read or a cute meme or whatever it might be. And I'll say, hey, check your messenger. She's like, babe, I'm not getting on there. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Okay, I'll send it to your phone. So her saying like I got on for 15 minutes today.
Well, I didn't mean to.
This is like big.
No, I didn't mean to. But I got on to post and I started scrolling and I was like, good God, I can't do this. Like I feel like we're all gonna die. Which is not the reality. Not the reality at all. And so I would say if there's ever this is the best time in the world, get off. Get off. And here's the thing, the lie that people have been feeding you that you cannot be connected to people without social media, it is a lie. My relationships, my business, my everything has improved drastically since I have not been on social media.
Now, all that to say, there are some people that use it really well and have good boundaries.
If you have good boundaries, cool.
Yeah.
But
because we've been on the flip side of that where we've heard people say, you can't run a business on social media anymore. And we've been, whoa. You can use it for the right. So I don't want to be on either extreme.
No.
If you have the right boundaries.
But I'm saying
but
your health.
If you have the right boundaries or not.
You do know.
People come up to us all the time, and it's like, it's a secret. Like, we're in some secret society, and they're like, how are you doing it? How did you do it? Because I know I need to get
How did you
but
get
I
over
feel like
it?
I have to take care of all these people and do all this stuff, and like, it just sucks me in and all.
Oh my God.
It's like we're in this secret, like, society.
Like we're having AA meetings for social media addiction, friends.
Do you know? Oh no, I don't remember the name now. But do you know that there's a name that people say, "Are you friends with such and such?" And that means that you're also in AA. Do you know about that? Because someone asked me one time if I was friends with such and such, and I didn't. I was like, "Who are you talking? Bill?" Okay, you don't have to out yourselves, but if you've seen it in a movie or something, and you know the person's name, there's a thing that if someone says, "Hey, are you friends with Bill?"
Ask my dad.
I don't think he ever goes to the meeting.
Not anymore.
But there's a thing where someone says, "Are you friends with?" and then they say a name, and it means that you're in AA also, like you're an ex-addict.
But I mean, what are the chances that you know somebody with that name?
Well, but if they ask anything other than, because it's a common name, so they would say Bill who. But if it's somebody, they're like, "I am friends with Bill. Good to know I've got another friend." Like, it's this thing. And so someone's going to put it, come on, somebody, are you friends with who? But
anyways, that's what I feel like.
But that's what I feel like.
Listen,
people are like,
for real.
How did you
so Christy said, can you do a training on how to go from using social media to not using it at all and still being successful? Yes, because the number of messages I've gotten about this, like people saying, I want to get off. Seriously, y'all, the emails that I get about people saying, I want to get off. Like, I want to get off, but I feel like my business wouldn't survive. Oh, it's not true. It would. You're going to have to do some things to make the switch. And so, yes, maybe that's something we'll talk about in coming weeks.
Well, but also think of it like this, like we talk about all the time, the 30,000 foot view, and you can do this in your marriage. You can do this as parents. You can do this in your business. But when you look at the amount of time spent on social media versus the amount of time, and I'm not talking about just the box you say, well, I'm working social media in my business. I wrote a book
when I got off of social media.
But the amount of time people spend on social media in America, I think it's for people that have Facebook, I think 2 of the 4 major social media platforms, they say people spend almost 6 hours a day either directly engaged or indirectly engaged. So it's open on their phone, but they're not checking it constantly, but still 6 hours. That's more than most people work in a day.
And so many.
If you spent a third of that on engaging people in your community, texting people, emailing people, letting people know you're still here, I've got product, I'm putting in an order, whatever it might be, your business would thrive in a way, and around relationships, not just around sales posts.
And you can still do it in a smart way where there's automation involved and there's things involved where you're taking care of people and it's not always you 100%. Like, that's the beauty of this business. Yeah, we 100%. We will go there.
I can't believe nobody posted the name. AA. Are you friends with? I think it's Bill.
Anyways, all right.
We're getting off topic here.
We really got on a tangent there. Be reflective. Limit your news intake. Limit your social media intake.
I'm not gonna see y'all's comments anymore. I'm sorry about that.
Or get off of social media. And just be aware of your intake in general. And so one of the things I want you to think about just for a minute is that we are constantly processing information.
Well, you will talk about getting off social media. It'll be in year 11? What year are you in? Or 12. Year 12.
Anyways.
So in 6-8 weeks.
But when I say be aware of your intake, it's not just social media. It's not just news. It's people too.
Are you friends with Al? Melfish said it. Oh. Maybe it's friends with Al. I knew it was a somewhat common name.
Anyways.
I'm going to start saying that. Are you friends with Al? Just to see if that's what it is. Okay.
Anyways. Be aware of your intake. That means people too.
Addie. Or, she's walked by like 17 times.
So good.
Okay, she walks by again.
We have got to finish this. It's almost
Let's
like
finish.
a movie length.
Let's go.
Stop talking. Limit who you're allowing to put information into your life. And that may mean that there are some people in your life that you just need to kind of not separate yourself from, but push away. Not push away. I don't even know. I don't have the right words. But just limit the amount of time that you're spending consuming what they're saying. Because other people's thoughts and beliefs definitely influence yours. And so, even if it's not in the form of social media and you're talking on Marco Polo or you're talking via text all the time, be aware of their level of anxiety and fear because that will push off into you as well. Here's my last tip. If you're a believer, get in God's word. This is nothing new. It's not a shock to God. It's not unexpected. It was not unannounced. I believe that God has asked us to stop for a number of reasons. I mean, we could get on the high horse of all the reasons why we have idolized everything under the sun. That it's time to stop the busy, that it's time to stop the hustle, that it's time to stop the too much, that it's time to focus on the things that actually matter, the people in our four walls, the things that we can't walk away from right now, that we're being forced to sit in front of. Some of us don't know how to stop. And so we are being forced to stop. I believe 100% that we're going to be better on the other side of this. I think that it is our perspectives, that it is our hope, that it is the people that we surround ourselves with, that it is the things that we intake and the things that we watch that will carry us through this. And I truly believe that marriages and families are going to be restored through it. Things that you've been running from dealing with for weeks or months or even years, you're going to find yourself faced forward with, like, can't run from it anymore. It's time to deal with the things. It's time to get yourself healthy. It's time for your spouse to get healthy. It's time for your marriage to be healed. It's time for your family to be healthy. And for your family to be whole. This is an epidemic. Yes, it is something we've never seen in our whole lives. And the question is, how do we respond? Do we sit in fear? Do we live on the internet? Do we intake and never output? Or do we control what we can control? Do we focus on the things that we can solely focus on? Do we find our hope and our faith in something other than the news? It's up to you. You're the one that gets to decide that. Your business can be different on the other side of this. Your marriage can be different on the other side of this. Your family, your relationships, your relationship with social media, your relationship with the internet, your relationship with the news. It can all be different on the other side of this, but it will all be up to you. You are the only person who can change the way you think and the way that you feel and the way that you process things. And now's the time. Now is the time. There's no more games to play. It's time for you to get serious about what you want, about what you want your family to look like, about what you want your marriage to look like. And it's time to fight for things worth fighting for, things worth standing up for, because you ultimately are in control of your own feelings and your own thoughts. Is this a big deal? Yes, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Are you going to let yourself be crippled by fear or anxiety or anger or frustration? You get to choose. There are some of you who, yes, maybe you need to be on medication right now. Do what you need to do to take care of those things. Take care of yourself. Do not let yourself spiral. Do what needs to be done to take care of you so you can take care of your family, so you and your spouse and your kids can be the best for each other in this season. It's a challenge, but we do not grow in comfort. We never have. We never will. It is challenge that will change us. It is challenge that will push us. And I believe that is true for you right now in this season. And you get to choose how you respond to it. So, I love you guys. Sorry that we went an hour and 15 minutes. It's like a small short film.
Sorry about that. It's her fault. I didn't say anything.
I've been short lately, for the record.
About 5'6".
And a half. I'm 5'7", technically.
But we love you guys.
We do.
Also, like we said at the beginning, send us messages if you guys need prayer for anything. If there's anything that you guys want us to cover or talk about, we're always open to your all's ideas, and we really do care about you. Some of you we know really well, some of you we have never met, but we really feel called to to do this every week, and we feel like this is something that, for whatever reason, God's given us this small platform to try to speak truth and life into you guys. And so if there's ever anything you guys need help with or guidance on or prayer for, we would love to know what it is. We would love to be able to be shoulder to shoulder with you in whatever fight you're going through. So don't be alone. Don't fight alone. Let us know if y'all need help with anything. And we look forward to seeing all you beautiful faces next week.
I don't know.
In your tiny little image. That we
I
see.
can't remember when we're live next week, but I'll post it and let
Your
you know.
calendar right there.
It's
That's under the
thing. Okay. Love
See you
y'all.
guys.
Talk
Love
later.
y'all.